They told me it was a standard compact accession, a form, a signature, a handshake across a treaty table. The Galactic Compact's Clause 14 was famous for exactly that kind of language: standard, routine, administrative transfer of recognized non-dynastic royal persons, which is the way bureaucrats describe handing a human man a princess nobody wanted. I'd done contract work for the Compact before. Nothing glamorous. I built water reclamation rigs for frontier stations, serviced heat exchangers on border keeps, the kind of work that earns you a Compact labor designation and a travel pass you mostly use for cold food in transit lounges. When the notice arrived, Clause 14, voluntary participation, matched candidate, mountain border post, Sara threshold. I read it twice trying to find the part where they were joking. They weren't joking. That's the thing about galactic law, it has no sense of humor. The Sara threshold was a keep carved into a mountain pass between two civilizations who had spent 300 years deciding whether to trade or fight. The corridors were cold granite, the heating was unreliable, and the treaty banners hanging from the ceiling had been there long enough to fade at the edges. I arrived with a duffel bag and the signed intake form, and a compact officer named Tess who had the energy of a man very tired of explaining things to humans. She is the fourth daughter of the Drevi Consortium's secondary branch, Tess said as we walked. His voice was the voice of a man reading from a document he'd memorized years ago and found no more interesting now. She carries a genetic marker the Drevi Bloodline Council classified as dynasty incompatible. She has been formally designated a non-succession asset. The Compact's Clause 14 provision. I read it, I said. Requires a willing human candidate to complete the match contract, following which she exits the Drevi Bloodline Register and enters Compact civilian status under your sponsorship designation. He paused. She is not unwell. She is not dangerous. She has no known defects beyond the Bloodline Council's classification. What does the Bloodline Council's classification actually mean? He cleared his throat. It means she cannot produce heirs that satisfy the Drevi succession purity requirements. I let that sit for a moment. We kept walking. So they're giving her away, I said. The Compact's language is voluntary transfer of non-succession status. Right. The Drevi delegation was waiting in the signing room. There were 4 of them, 2 court advocates in formal robes of deep indigo, 1 genetic records official holding a glass tablet that seemed to be the most important thing in the room to him, and a senior delegate, a tall woman with the kind of posture that said she had been important for a very long time and intended to continue being so. The princess was standing to one side. She was not what I'd expected, though I couldn't have told you what I'd expected. She was shorter than the delegates, close-cropped dark hair, skin the color of old copper in good light, that particular warm rust gold that I'd only seen in pictures of the Drevi interior clans. Her eyes were dark amber. She was watching me the way people watch a weather front, not with fear exactly, but with the calm attention of someone expecting something unpleasant and wanting to be ready for it. She had dressed formally. That detail caught at me. She'd put on a ceremonial collar and formal court sash, which meant she had decided this moment was worth dressing for, even though everyone in the room had already decided she was worth nothing. That took a kind of dignity I didn't have a word for. The senior delegate began immediately. She addressed the Compact officer, not me. We are prepared to complete the document transfer. The non-succession designation is fully certified, the genetic record is provided in triplicate, and the consortium considers this matter a routine administrative clearance. A brief pause. The human candidate has been informed of the terms. He has, Tess said. The consortium notes that the candidate's labor designation is, she glanced down at something, artisan contractor, Class C compact standing, non-military, non-diplomatic. She said it the way you might say the floor is wet, informative, slightly warning. That's right, I said. She looked at me then, directly. She had the eyes of someone who had spent decades deciding things and had no patience for any decision that hadn't already been made. The consortium trusts the compact has explained that this is an administrative matter. We expect it to proceed without theatrics. Sure, I said. They handed me the first document. While I was reading it, and I did read it, all 8 pages of it, which I think annoyed the genetic records official considerably, the princess was escorted to a seat at the far end of the table. Nobody spoke to her. Nobody offered her anything. The senior delegate had a glass of something warm. Her advocates had water. The princess had nothing in front of her, and nobody seemed to notice. There was a secondary corridor off the signing room. I could see it from where I was standing. Cold stone, a narrow window, a thin bar of afternoon light coming through from the mountain outside. I need a few minutes, I said. Tess blinked. The signing is still here in 8 minutes. I need to step out. I went to the corridor. After a moment, I think because nobody told her she couldn't, or because nobody was paying enough attention to stop her, the princess followed. The light through the window was thin and gray and very clean. It caught the side of her face. You don't have to make conversation, she said. Her standard was precise, slightly formal, the kind you learn from instruction rather than practice. I understand this is a formality. What's your name? I asked. She looked at me. There was a small, careful pause, the pause of someone recalibrating. Kale, she said. Kale Sareth Vane. What do you do, Kale? Another pause. Longer this time. She studied me the way you study something you've identified incorrectly once and want to be sure of this time. I am a cartographer, she said. Or I was. I mapped the Drevi interior passes, before the designation. She said that last part flatly, the way you say a fact that doesn't require emotion because it's been true long enough to lose its edge. The work is considered non-essential for a non-succession person. It was reassigned. I work on water systems, I said. Reclamation rigs, heat exchangers, the things that keep places livable. She looked at me. That is useful work. Most useful work is quiet, I said. Nobody writes about it. She almost smiled. It was a small thing, the corner of her mouth, the slight ease around her eyes, but it was there. We stood in that corridor for another 5 minutes. She told me about the interior passes, the way the Drevi mountain systems ran perpendicular to the prevailing winds, so you could predict weather 3 days out if you knew how to read the ridge lines. I told her about a reclamation rig I'd rebuilt on a desert station, so old the original builders had used a now extinct metal alloy in the pressure joints, and how I'd had to improvise a replacement out of material that technically wasn't rated for the application and had held for 11 years. She thought that was funny. The real kind of funny, not the polite kind. We went back in. I read the remaining documents. I signed. The senior delegate collected the forms with the efficiency of a woman completing a task she considered beneath her but necessary. The genetic records official validated everything on his glass tablet. Tess countersigned the compact portion. It was done in under 3 minutes. As the Drevi delegation gathered their things, the senior delegate addressed Kale for the first and only time. The consortium considers this matter closed. You have been remanded to compact civilian status. You are no longer a concern of the succession registry. She said it to the air slightly above Kale's head. Kale said nothing. She was watching me. When the delegation had gone, Tess informed us that transport to the compact civilian processing center would depart in the morning and that our quarters were in the east wing. Then he left too, and it was just the 2 of us in the stone room with the faded banners. The compact provision, she said carefully. Clause 14, there's a refusal clause. There is, I said. A voluntary candidate can decline within the signing window, before the final countersignature. That's right. She looked at me steadily. Her eyes were very still. You knew that. I read the whole document, I said. All 8 pages. annoyed the records fellow quite a bit. She was quiet for a long moment. Why didn't you use it? I thought about the corridor, the light, the ridge lines she described. I thought about 11 years on a repair that wasn't supposed to hold. You mapped passes nobody else thought were worth mapping, I said. That seems like the kind of work worth knowing. The room was very quiet. One of the treaty banners shifted slightly in a draft from somewhere. Her eyes didn't leave mine, and whatever she'd been holding, the careful stillness she'd carried since the moment I walked in shifted, just slightly, like a door eased open rather than kicked. I have 47 maps, she said, that the Drevi never catalogued. Then you'd better bring them, I said. She looked at me for another moment. Then she nodded once, and it was the nod of a woman deciding that the box she'd been living in had, in fact, no walls on one side, and that someone had just pointed to the opening.